Hello everyone, welcome to the third season of What If Naruto Was Forced to Marry Hinata and Temari? Remember that you can find the previous chapters in a playlist. If you want more fanfics like this, all I ask is that you like and comment. Now then, enjoy!
Chapter 12, His Own Path. Naruto's confusion reverberated through the silent training ground, everyone else in various states of shock after seeing how Naruto's chakra paper reacted. Turning to Kakashi, who was staring into the distance with the most serious expression he had seen on him in a while, Naruto asked a question. Kakashi-sensei, does this mean that I have two affinities? The question seemed to knock Kakashi out of the trance he was in. With his eye crinkling upwards, Kakashi threw a thumbs up towards Naruto. That's right. It appears that you have fire and wind affinity, both of which have very useful applications for offense-related jutsus. The confirmation excited Naruto, who jumped in place with his fist in the air, shouting about how great he was. His exuberance drew the attention of Hinata and Sakura, who both went over to talk to him. One to say how happy they were for him and the other to tell him not to get too big of a head. Watching them, Kakashi had a small smile on his face, but his thoughts were running rampant. How in the world does Naruto have two affinities? I was expecting him to have wind, considering that Minato-sensei had it. That was even part of why I went ahead to teach Naruto about chakra natures now, since I thought Temari would be able to help him with it. With his smile turning into more of a frown, he continued. Still though, I wasn't expecting fire, much less in addition to wind. From what I remember, Kushina had water chakra nature, so that would make more sense than fire. Could it be coming from Kyuubi? There's also the implications of what having both fire and wind nature could mean, he thought, sending a glance to the Sand siblings who were a lot quieter and whispering to each other. Kankuro even looked a little paler at the news, although Gaara and Temari didn't seem too bothered. I'm sure that Naruto doesn't have any family ties to their village, but that won't necessarily be easy to disprove either without telling everyone who his parents really are. I'm going to train. Sasuke declared his intentions and then began walking away by himself to a different area of the training yard, never once looking back. Although his fists were tightly clenched, and he walked at a brisk pace. Sakura followed him after a moment of hesitation and started praising him on his own lightning affinity. Seeing two of his students going off by themselves made Kakashi let out a sigh. Sasuke won't take this well. He's already beginning to resent Naruto, and that will only grow with the knowledge that Naruto has a dual affinity. I'll have to try and find a way for the two of them to reconcile before it's too late. Hey Kakashi-sensei, looking down, Kakashi came face to face with Naruto, who was waving his hands trying to get his attention. Seeing that Kakashi was paying attention, Naruto asked him, So, I was wondering, since I've got two affinities, does that mean that I've got a special chakra nature like Gaara or Haku? Kakashi had been anticipating that question and began to give his thoughts on the matter. I'm not sure, Naruto. Usually, when someone has a dual nature, it means they also get whatever the combination of those two natures is. However, every time that's happened, it's because of a Kekkai Genkai that's tied to a bloodline, which makes this case unique since you have no relation to the previous users. Naruto scratched his head in confusion. Huh? What do you know about the previous users? Her name was Pakura. Naruto was surprised that it wasn't Kakashi who answered, but Temari. Turning his attention to her, he listened as she began to explain. Pakura was one of the most well-known shinobi to ever come out of Suna. She was famous for her use of Scorch style, which is the combination of fire and wind chakra. However, she died many years ago on a mission gone wrong and had no family to speak of. So, it was believed that the Scorch style had died off and was lost for good. Oh, I see, Naruto replied, slightly more downcast than before. So does that mean that I won't be able to use Scorch style then? Who knows? Kakashi piped up again. I think there's a possibility you could, but there's no way to know for sure. You shouldn't be focusing on that for a long time anyway. It would be much better for you to focus on mastering your wind and fire natures separately before you try to use them together. Tilting his head, Naruto questioned, Master them? That's right. Kakashi nodded. It's not enough to just know your chakra nature to be able to start using it. You have to learn how to achieve a change in chakra nature so you can begin to use it for jutsus. Usually that takes a few years of training before one can say they've fully mastered an element. Naruto wilted at hearing that it would take years to do. How come Sasuke is able to use both fire and lightning already then? Because the great fireball jutsu is one that's passed down in the Uchiha clan and is a rite of passage to learn it. It's pretty telling of Sasuke's talent that he was able to use it before he became a genin without even possessing fire nature. As for Chidori, he used his Sharingan to allow him to learn it much faster than normal. All he had to do was convert his chakra into lightning, which didn't take long since it was his own nature, and he already knew the process for using fire. Naruto grumbled about genius Uchihas and cheating Sharingans, which caused Kakashi to sweat drop. Trying to lift his spirits a little bit, he said, "With that said, Sasuke hasn't mastered either fire or lightning chakra. He's just learned enough to let him use the few jutsu he knows requires a change in chakra nature. If he ever takes the time to master one, then he'll be able to use his jutsus more efficiently and have an easier time learning new jutsus of that corresponding nature. Alright, then I'll just have to master both of my affinities before Sasuke manages to do even one." Just like that, Naruto was back to normal. The Sand siblings were shocked at his quick turnaround, but Hinata just gave her usual smile at his antics. Kakashi chuckled and patted Naruto on his head. "Heh, well, you better get to work then if you don't want to fall behind. There are a few steps you must take to master your chakra nature, but I'll just tell you the first step to start with." Kakashi vanished for a split second before he returned with some tree leaves in his hand. Everyone was surprised at his sheer speed, but he began to speak before they could comment on it. The first step is to get a feel for how to achieve your change in chakra nature. The easiest way to do this is to use tree leaves as a base to start with. What you want to do is channel your chakra in such a way that your chakra will cause a reaction in the leaf that reflects the element you're using. Naruto, this means that if you need to cut the leaf with your chakra for wind or burn it for fire. Naruto's eyes lit up at the thought of being able to do cool jutsus after he mastered this. He jumped up to grab one of the leaves, but Kakashi quickly moved them out of the way. "Hold on, Naruto. It's not going to be as easy as it sounds," Kakashi said, trying to get Naruto not to have his hopes set too high. It takes most people a long time to even just do this simple step, and most don't even start until they're Chunin. That's why it would be best if you only focused on mastering one element for the time being, and then move on to the other after you've got a good understanding of the basics. Displeased at the thought of having to wait longer to learn both, Naruto whined but reluctantly nodded, knowing where Kakashi was coming from. "Good," Kakashi continued, glad that Naruto didn't raise too big of a fuss. "As for what I recommend, I believe you should start with your wind chakra. Wind is arguably the best element for close to mid-range combat, which is what you excel in. It's also the rarest affinity to have in our village, so it would help to set you apart more, which could be useful for becoming Hokage." Naruto quickly became excited again at the prospect of learning something that wasn't common in the village. "Really? Do you know anybody else that has wind chakra then?" Adopting a thinking pose, Kakashi answered. "The only person that I know of is Asuma Sarutobi, the third Hokage's son and sensei of Team 10. Of course, that's changed now that we have both you and Temari here, but it's still a very short list." Even though he didn't say it out loud, Kakashi did have someone else come to mind though. "Of course there's Danzo, but there's no way that I'm letting Naruto get anywhere near him. That's just a disaster waiting to happen if it ever comes to pass." Shaking his head to clear those thoughts away, Kakashi pointed out something else. "Oh yeah, Minato-sensei also had a wind affinity as well, although he rarely used it since he was able to take down most of his foes with the Hiration." Naruto couldn't help a small smile coming over him at the mention of his father having the same nature as him, although it also came with a small pang of disappointment. Everyone always talked about how great the fourth Hokage was and the sheer genius he seemed to possess. Even now, years after his death, he was looked up to as the greatest hero the village had ever seen. "In fact, this whole treaty came to be because of my connection to the fourth Hokage," he thought with a little bit of melancholy. "They believe that I'll be just like my father and be able to do all the amazing feats he was able to. Can I live up to that? Do I even want to?" Just when his smile was beginning to drop, he remembered how he had helped to change Gaara, something that he had been able to do without even knowing the legacy he was a part of. He was only able to do it because he didn't know his own legacy. It let him relate to Gaara in a way no one else was able to, and that allowed him to save Gaara. That's right. Even if I'm the son of the fourth Hokage, I'm not him. I'm not a genius or a prodigy like he was. Naruto felt his grin grow wider as he recalled something he had been told before. I'm a proud failure. I can be strong, not because I'm talented or gifted, but because I always get back up. Because I'll never give up. Hitting his chest with his fist, he declared with determination. Then I'll just have to find my own path to grow stronger. Even if I stumble and fall, I'll get back up. Learn how to play to my strengths and do the things that only I can do. Train harder than anyone else and always give it my all. That way I'll surpass everyone else on my way to becoming Hokage. Everyone smiled at Naruto's confidence, his energy infecting each of them to believe in his words. Temari and Kankuro saw a glimpse of the true nature of Naruto, the one who was able to change their little brother's future. Hinata was once again reminded of how much she admired Naruto's determination, and how she strove to be even just a little bit like him. Kakashi had to blink as the image of Naruto blurred to one of his sensei overlapping with the fire of Kushina. Sensei, Naruto sure has grown up. With a small smile that was obscured by his mask, Kakashi patted Naruto on the head and said, I'm looking forward to it, Naruto. I'll let you get to working on it then and wait to be impressed. Turning to Hinata, Kakashi continued, if you want to practice your element alongside Naruto, then you just have to follow the same process, except you have to draw out all the moisture that's in the leaf. Hinata bowed and replied, Thank you, Kakashi-sensei. I appreciate your instruction. Kakashi just waved it off. No worries, just keep an eye on Naruto for me. He's a handful to take care of, so someone to help with that is always welcome. Naruto began to protest that he wasn't that much trouble, while Hinata just giggled and agreed to help whenever she could. Looking at the Sand siblings, he said, I would like for you all to follow me. I need to tell Sakura how to work with her nature and check on Sasuke. After that, I want to speak to you, Temari, about all the techniques and training, you know. That way I can make plans for how you can fit on our team more easily and what kind of training plan you should follow. Your siblings' input could also be useful since they've worked with you for a long time and know how you operate. Nodding at the request, the Sand siblings waved goodbye to Naruto and Hinata, saying they would see them later. They then followed after Kakashi, who was already walking away towards where Sakura and Sasuke were at. Once they were gone, Naruto pumped his fist and turned to Hinata. All right, Hinata-chan, let's get to work. I'm going to learn how to use my wind in no time at all. Hinata smiled at his enthusiasm. Why yes, Naruto-kun. I believe in you. Damn it. I couldn't even get a single tear in the leaf. Naruto was currently walking back through the village with Hinata beside him. He had spent the past several hours trying to make any sort of progress in his wind chakra training, but to no avail. Temari and her siblings had left earlier, saying that they had some things to take care of, and they would see him later. Of course, Kakashi hadn't stayed around long after that, and he still didn't feel like hanging around Sakura and Sasuke. That left Naruto and Hinata, neither of which were able to manifest a change in chakra nature. So, at Hinata's behest, they decided to eat lunch that Hinata had already provided, and then take a walk to clear their heads before Hinata had to leave for her clan training. It's okay, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, trying to placate him. I believe you'll figure it out soon. Thanks, Hinata-chan, he replied, perking back up a little. It's just annoying to spend half the day trying and having nothing to show for it. I understand, but Kakashi-sensei said that it takes most people a long time to master it. So, I think you'll just have to be patient. Naruto sighed at her words but nodded. You're probably right, Hinata-chan, I just don't like it. Being patient was never something I've been good at. Hinata giggled at his words but didn't deny them. His infectious energy was always something she liked about him, being so far removed from anyone in her family besides possibly Hanabi. It was like a breath of fresh air to her, and she wouldn't admonish him for it, even if it bothered other people. Putting a finger to her chin, she thought about his problem for a moment. It might be a good idea for you to ask Temari for advice, Naruto-kun, she said after some deliberation. She does have one of the same affinities, so she would most likely have some pointers you could use. Naruto's face lit up, and he snapped his fingers. That's right. Why didn't I think of that? You're a genius, Hinata-chan. And no, it wasn't anything special. I'm as sure you would have thought about it soon. Hinata waved her hands in front of her face, trying to hide the blush that was rising from his sudden compliment. Ha ha. Well, I'm thankful you brought it up anyway. Naruto laughed at her flustered expression. After a few more chuckles escaped him, he calmed himself down and thought about going to ask Temari for advice. It's a good idea, but I wonder if I should go ahead and ask her now? I'm not sure, but it might have something to do with her birthday. Hinata tilted her head and asked with a confused expression, birthday? Naruto looked at her blankly for a moment before answering, yeah, it's Temari's birthday today. Did I not tell you that? Hinata returned his blank stare. No, you did not. Immediately after, her cheeks puffed up and she started poking him in his side, aiming for any sensitive spot she could find. Ow! Ow! I get it. I'm sorry. She stopped poking once he apologized to her, but her pouty expression remained. In a flat voice, she told him, you're supposed to inform me of important things like this. We're partners now and we must work together. If I didn't make any acknowledgement of Temari's birthday, then that wouldn't make a good impression. Naruto clapped his hands together and bowed towards her. I know. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan. I didn't mean to not tell you. I just forgot. Please, forgive me. Hinata's sternness vanished when greeted by his honest feelings of guilt. Face gaining its usual kind visage, she stammered out, it's okay. Naruto-kun, I forgive you. Standing back up straight at her words, Naruto grinned at not being in too much trouble. Hinata shook her head at his antics but decided to let it go. Anyway, it might be too late to do something too big for a sea celebration, especially since she's new to the village. We can still get her a few gifts though, to make her feel welcome. That sounds like a good idea. What should we get her though? Naruto mused. Hinata thought about what might make a good present for Temari. She told me that she likes to read, but I never asked what genre she prefers. Clothes could be a good choice, but I don't know what style she likes or any of her measurements. Plus, it would probably be weird if Naruto got her clothes right now. I guess that just leaves shinobi gear then. With her options narrowed down, Hinata answered Naruto's question. Maybe you should get her something that's useful for her as a shinobi. There's several shops around here that sell different kinds of gear. I'm sure we could find something she would like. Oh yeah, Temari is a pretty serious shinobi, so she would probably like something that helps her get better. However, Naruto's face fell as he remembered why he couldn't easily go find a present for her. How am I supposed to buy anything though when most of the shops don't let me in? Naruto mumbled in dejection. Growing sad at the reminder of how Naruto was treated in the village, Hinata began to think of a solution to his problem. After a moment, she remembered something that Niji had told her and figured it was worth a shot. Taking a deep breath to gather her courage, she reached out to grab Naruto's hand and began to lead him away. Wa? Hinata-chan, where are you taking me? Naruto asked in confusion, a slightly red face from the hand holding that she initiated herself. Keeping her eyes forward so that he wouldn't see her own blush, she answered, just trust me, Naruto-kun. Niji talked to me about a store he had been to and I think that it might just be able to help us. Ultimately deciding to trust her, even if she was acting a little weird, Naruto shrugged his shoulders and let Hinata pull him towards wherever she had in mind. After a few minutes of walking, they finally arrived at their destination. Naruto looked at the store they were standing outside of, labeled Higarashi's weapons and gear. At first glance, it didn't seem too special. Just a building that had a few weapons hanging up outside alongside a sign telling the hours. Naruto had never been here before, but he didn't have too high hopes that they would let him shop either. After years of being kicked out of places, he kept his expectations low that any place besides Ichiraku's would welcome him in. Still, glancing over to see Hinata's expectant look and shy smile made him willing to give it a try for her sake if nothing else. Letting out a quiet sigh so Hinata wouldn't hear it, he slowly walked up to the door and opened it after a moment's hesitation. Steeling himself, he entered the building with Hinata trailing behind him. Once he was inside, he was immediately startled by the sheer number of items that the store seemed to have. Every wall was covered by some manner of weapon, scroll, or other type of shinobi gear. There were also various bins scattered around that had more standard shinobi items, such as kunai or shurikens. It was almost overwhelming in a sense, but before Naruto could get too lost, a voice called out to them, "Welcome to Higarashi's. How may I help Y-?" Naruto, hearing his name called out, Naruto looked towards the counter where he saw a confused Tenten staring back at him. Confused but happy to see a familiar face, Naruto grinned and walked towards the counter with Hinata trailing behind him. "Hey Tenten, how are you? What are you doing here?" Raising an eyebrow at his jovial greeting when they barely knew each other, she decided to humor his questions. "I'm doing good, just training a lot since the Chunin exams ended. I'm watching over the store right now though, since my dad is away on business." "So what brings you here?" Tenten asked, throwing the question back at him. "I don't work here too often, but I haven't ever seen you come here when I do." Her eyes darted back to where Hinata was still slightly hanging back behind Naruto. A teasing grin slowly broke out onto Tenten's face as she asked in a teasing voice, "Oh, is this a date for the two of you?" Her words caused the two of them to blush heavily and wave their hands back and forth in denial. They both tried to speak up to try to explain themselves, but they couldn't seem to stop stuttering. Eventually, Naruto was able to squeak out an explanation. "And no, it's not L like that. Me and Hinata-chan W were just training tea together and decided to do some shopping." Hinata, face on fire, nodded rapidly to show her agreement with what Naruto said. Still, a part of her felt downcast at having to deny being on a date as well as hearing Naruto deny it so vehemently. Tenten's grin didn't leave her face, but she decided to stop teasing them so much. "If you say so," she said in a sing-song voice. Straightening up, she let her grin turn into a more welcoming smile. Adopting a more businesslike persona, she asked them, "So what are you looking for? We've got all kinds of shinobi gear that I'm sure we can find whatever you need." Naruto's blush slowly died down as she began to speak more like a shop owner. "Why yeah, we were looking for..." Naruto trailed off, realizing that he had been so worried they wouldn't find a store he could shop in, that he didn't spend any time to think of what to get Temari besides general shinobi gear. Not to mention, he had never been in a gear store, so he didn't know what to look for in the first place. Naruto-kun and IW were looking for something that would go well with a wind affinity." Hinata spoke up, aware that Naruto might not be too familiar with shopping himself. Do you have anything L like that? Huh? A wind affinity? That's a strange request considering how rare it is in the village. Tenten said with a slightly confused look. Putting a finger to her chin, she began to think about what items they had in stock now. We don't carry a lot of gear that's tailor-made for wind chakra, since it would be unlikely for us to sell it. We have different kinds of weapons made from chakra metal that conduct elemental chakra well, but that's probably not what you're looking for." After a few more moments of deliberation, Tenten's eyes brightened up, and she snapped her fingers. "Hold on. I've got just the thing. Give me just a minute to find it." With that said, she was quick to disappear into the back room of the store to look for the item that she thought of. When she left, Naruto looked over to Hinata with a grateful expression. "Thanks, Hinata-chan. I would have never been able to figure out what to look for without you, so I'm glad you're here with me." He finished his statement with a grin and sent her a thumbs up to show his appreciation. His kind words sent Hinata's heart into a frenzy. She was barely able to mutter out a squeaky, "Why you're welcome, and Naruto-kun." He just began chuckling at her words, but she barely heard it. The inside of her mind was in disarray. He's glad I'm here with him. Is that only for today, or does that mean that he always likes when I'm with him? Will he think the same thing again tomorrow, or will he change his mind? If he doesn't change his mind, does that mean he wants to stay together forever? With each thought, Hinata's blush grew deeper, fantasizing about what kind of future she could have with Naruto. Lost in her fantasies, she didn't realize that she had already, once again, forgotten that she was getting married to Naruto and they would always be together anyway. Ah, here it is. That exclamation brought Hinata out of her fantasies as she saw Tenten bring out a package from the back. Her blush changed to one of embarrassment, and she did her best to keep her mouth shut so any traitorous squeaks wouldn't escape her. Tenten noticed Hinata's red face and had a smirk at the sight, sure that Naruto had said something to her. However, she decided not to say anything and instead showed off what she brought, especially because Naruto was vibrating with excitement. What do you got there? Is it some kind of top-secret ninja weapon? Or a new jutsu scroll? Oh, maybe a ninja suit that will let you fly with wind chakra. Tenten chuckled at his imagination, although she did raise her eyebrows at the last suggestion. In the same vein, Naruto's enthusiasm helped calm Hinata back down as she let out a giggle at Naruto's suggestions that were obviously just things that he wanted. No, it's nothing like that. Tenten opened the box and reached inside to bring out what looked like 2 metal sticks. Snapping her wrists in a flourish, they opened themselves to reveal they were handheld fans. Decked out in all black, they didn't appear to be too extravagant, but one could tell that they were well made from just a single look. These are a special kind of shinobi item called battle fans, Tenten explained to an oddly attentive Naruto and Hinata. They're made from chakra metal, which allows them to conduct elemental chakra much better than a regular tool. The purpose of this is obviously to use them in conjunction with wind chakra to do things like send out blasts of wind or even use them as a cutting tool. She brought out a piece of bamboo from under the counter and used one of the fans to slice through it with ease to the surprise of her customers. Obviously, you would be missing the range of a sword and they're not as easy to wield as a kunai, but they can still get the job done. Plus, what they lack in direct combat power they make up for in sheer versatility. A slightly frustrated expression crossed Tenten's face before it reverted to her normal cheerful one, and she continued her explanation. Unlike the giant war fans that Suna regularly uses, these aren't meant for giant bursts of wind. They're much lighter and used as more of a general support item. They're meant to be added as another tool to support you instead of something that you base your entire fighting style around. Having finished her demonstration, Tenten closed the fans back and set them inside the box once again. Looking at Naruto and Hinata, who both wore blank expressions, she asked for their opinions. So, what do you think? Her question broke them out of their stupor and caused a wide grin to appear on Naruto's face. They're so awesome, Tenten, Naruto exclaimed. It's just what we were looking for. How did you know exactly what to get? Hee. Well, when you've been around weapons as long as I have, you pick up a thing or two. Tenten giggled at his enthusiasm. Still, it wasn't anything too special this time since I only have this in stock for wind users now. It just happened to be a coincidence that it was what you needed. Glancing over to see how Hinata was reacting, she was a little surprised to see her pouting. She was about to ask what was wrong, when Hinata leaned over to Naruto and began poking him in his side. Ow! Hinata-chan, stop that. What did I do wrong this time? Tenten blinked at the closeness the two seemed to share, wondering if she had missed something. I was just teasing them about it being a date when they first came in, but could there actually be some truth to that? I wonder if Niji knows about this. Hinata just sighed as she stopped poking him. I suppose it's my fault for not telling you earlier, but I didn't think about how you might have never had to discuss sales before. You're not supposed to show how much you want an item before you ever even discuss a price. It will give the other person a chance to take advantage of you and raise the price more than the normal amount. Huh? Really? That's a thing? Naruto asked in confusion. She's right, Tenten answered for Hinata. It's a common practice among merchants to increase or decrease prices based on the person buying. That's why it's best to keep your emotions in check while haggling for a deal. Tenten then winked at the two of them before saying, Don't worry. I won't hold it over you this time. Since we're friends, I'll just let the scolding from your girlfriend be your punishment instead of charging you more. GG girlfriend, Hinata exclaimed in embarrassment. She had gotten so swept up trying to teach Naruto a lesson about commerce that she forgot about her usual shyness and started acting close in public. However, Naruto didn't even hear the girlfriend part. He was still hung up on what she said before that. Tenten thinks of us as friends? He thought in both amazement and confusion. Slowly, he found a small genuine smile overtaking his face as he realized that she was speaking her true feelings, even if they didn't know each other that much. Tenten giggled at Hinata returning to her flustered state that she heard was common around Naruto, at least before now apparently. Getting back into her business headset, she reached for a piece of paper and wrote down a number before showing it to the two of them. This is the price for the battle fans. That includes packaging as well as our 2-year guarantee, although anything else will be an additional cost. Naruto looked at the number before almost falling back in shock. There were a couple more zeros than he was expecting, although Hinata didn't seem too surprised. Are you sure this is the right number? I didn't think that a couple of fans would be this expensive. It is. Tenten nodded. Chakra metal isn't cheap, especially when it's forged into an item like this where it's not just a simple sword or dagger. It takes a special kind of skill to be able to make something that can cut almost as good as a sword while still maintaining the lightweight aspect of a fan. Honestly, this is basically a steal since I'm only charging you what we paid for it. With the shortage of wind users in the village, it could be years before someone else is even interested in it. So, I'm just trying to break even and get rid of it while you're already here asking about it. It's true, Naruto-kun, Hinata interjected. Seeing them both look at her, she shrunk a little before continuing, I don't know much about weapons, but I do know that chakra metal is expensive. Although the Hyuga clan don't use much for combat besides the gentle fist, we still occasionally buy some chakra metal for various purposes. I've seen some of the R reports before when I was with father, and these numbers seem to line up closely. Naruto nodded in acceptance of both their words. I need to be more careful with what I say sometimes, he thought in slight remorse. I didn't mean to imply that Tenten might be trying to con me. I'm just used to having other people overcharge me if they even sell me anything in the first place. That's why I'm always so stingy with my money when it comes to anything besides ramen, since I know how important it is. Thankfully, Tenten didn't seem to take it that way, but I should still apologize. Sorry, he said after a moment's pause. I was just shocked, so I didn't think how my words could sound to someone else. Tenten just waved off his apology though, saying it's fine, we get that kind of reaction all the time. Dealing with expensive weapons and gear will ensure that people always raise an eyebrow now and again. Our stuff is worth the cost though, so I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Naruto sighed in relief that she wasn't mad, although he did appreciate the grateful smile that Hinata sent him. He returned it with his own small smile before it fell again at the reminder of the price. Still, I can't afford this, he said slowly. It's really nice and I think it would be awesome to have, but I don't have that kind of money. His words struck a chord with Hinata, making her remember that Naruto didn't have the kind of money to spend on gifts like she does. Why didn't I think about Naruto-kun not having any money? She thought to herself in slight frustration. I could offer to pay for it considering that it wouldn't make a dent in the Hyuga's coffers, but Naruto-kun probably wouldn't accept a handout like that. Besides, I'm not sure if father would want me to use the clan's money for this, even if it is for the alliance. Hinata thought about how much the fans suited Temari, and they could be a big step forward in making a positive impression of themselves and the village. They really should be a gift from just Naruto-kun though. Temari might accept me giving her a gift like this, but I'm sure it would feel much more special coming from Naruto-kun himself. She grew a small blush at the thought of Naruto handing herself a gift that he picked out just for her. I know it would feel special to me. Shaking her head of the fantasy, Hinata tried to think of a solution that would allow Naruto to get the gift himself without feeling indebted to anyone. Tenten probably wasn't allowed to sell it in good faith that Naruto would pay later, especially considering his reputation in the village. Getting paid through missions was out of the question as well, since it would take no less than a year to gather enough with the low-rank missions Naruto would get as a genin. She began to grow frustrated at the seemingly lack of a solution to their issue. If only Naruto-kun was born into a wealthy shinobi clan like me, he could afford it no problem. Wait, Tenten let out a sigh at the fact that Naruto wouldn't be able to buy it. Well, that's a shame, but it's not like I was expecting to sell it today anyway. It'll probably still be here for a while, so if you happen to be able to buy it sometime, just let me know. Grimacing at the fact that he wouldn't be able to get the perfect gift for Temari, Naruto tried to think of anything else he could do to get the fans. However, before he could come up with anything, Hinata tugged on his sleeve. Glancing over his shoulder, he saw that she was giving him a meaningful look. Huh? What's up, Hinata-chan? She just inclined her head towards the entrance before answering. See, can I speak to you in private for a moment, Naruto-kun? He looked confused at the question before shrugging and offering a nod. Hinata sent him a grateful smile and told Tenten to give them a minute. Tenten was curious but didn't ask any questions, letting them talk over whatever seemed to be so important. Once Hinata had pulled Naruto over to the entrance, he asked her, "So what's so important that you couldn't talk about in front of Tenten, Hinata-chan?" Hinata glanced to make sure that Tenten wasn't listening to them before she said, "Do why you think that those fans are the P-perfect gift for Temari as well?" Naruto nodded. "Yeah, they're great, but I can't afford them. It would take me a long time before I'm ever able to save up that kind of money." "That's true," she said, agreeing with him. However, I think I know a way why you can buy them today." Naruto looked excited at the prospect. "Really? What do I have to do?" His face then quickly fell when he thought of what she might be offering. "Wait, are you talking about you buying it? I appreciate the thought, Hinata-chan, but you don't have to do that for me. You should be using your own money for yourself, not for me." Smiling at the fact that she knew him well enough to guess his reaction to her offer, she shook her head. Although she did laugh a little bit on the inside at the fact that he didn't want her to use her money on him, yet he was trying to use his own money for someone else. "And no, that's not what I meant. Though I wouldn't mind helping you out. I was going to suggest that you ask Lady Fifth to help you." Naruto tilted his head at her suggestion. "Huh? Lady Bachan? Why would I ask her? Even if she would give me money, I doubt she has any since she gambles it all away." Hinata quickly pouted at his words against the Hokage, which caused him to quickly bow and apologize for talking bad about Tsunade. Letting out a huff at Naruto's apology, Hinata decided to continue her explanation instead of rebuffing him more. "I meant to say that you ask Lady Fifth to use the money that she talked about when she was showing us the house. She said that she would help you out with finances for changes to make to the house, so she would probably let you use it for this as well. I'm sure she can see how this would make Temari happy and therefore help the alliance as well. It will be coming out of your family's money anyway once you get access to it, so it's not like you're just taking her money." Naruto's eyes light up in recognition of the reminder. "Oh yeah, Lady Bachan did say that this probably isn't what she meant for it to be used for, but I'm sure I can convince her." "Well, that settles that. Come on, Hinata-chan. Let's go talk to the Hokage." However, Hinata just shook her head. Sorry, Naruto-kun, but I have to return home. It's starting to get late and I still have some Clan P practice to attend. I believe why you can finish up here though. Just tell Lady Fifth why you need the money and then come be back here to buy it." Slouching at the fact that Hinata had to go home, Naruto let out a whine. Do you really got to go? What about the two of us giving Temari the present together?" "Why, you'll do fine, Naruto-kun. I think it's better if you give Temari the gift yourself anyway." Naruto didn't look too convinced but went along with it anyway. "Well, if you say so." At Hinata's nod, he smiled a little more genuinely. "Alright, I'll follow your idea then. I better go ahead and let Tenten know that I'll have to leave to go check first. That way I can get it done before the store closes hopefully." But first Naruto started before closing the gap between them and bringing a surprised Hinata into a tight hug. "I need to thank you for helping me today. I would never have been able to do any of this by myself. So thank you, Hinata-chan." "Enen Naruto-kun," Hinata exclaimed in embarrassment. Her face set itself aflame as she began to take deep breaths in order not to faint at the sudden embrace of her crush. Thankfully, or sadly, Naruto released her soon after, perhaps aware that it wouldn't be good for her to faint when she needed to leave. Sorry, Hinata-chan, but I couldn't resist. I just wanted you to know how grateful I am for all you've been doing for me lately." Naruto finished his sentence with a big grin that sent shockwaves throughout Hinata's system. Feeling her eyes water at Naruto's sincere words and the overwhelming sensation of her heart beating faster from the love she felt, Hinata was unable to stop a few sniffles from escaping. However, she did manage to send Naruto back a smile of her own, wider and truer than she had thought she was capable of. "I will always be there for you, Naruto-kun, in whatever way I can." The words flowed from Hinata's mouth before she even realized it. She was surprised that she was even able to say something like that, much less without a single stutter. Judging by the pleased expression on Naruto's face though, and the fact that he even sported a small blush of his own, she didn't regret it. You two are just so cute. Tenten's voice broke them out of their trances, reminding them that they were still within her store where she just saw them hugging. They slowly turned in unison to Tenten, who was watching them with a wide grin and a dopey look in her eyes. "Oh, don't mind me," she said, waving them off. "I wasn't listening since you obviously wanted to discuss it in private, but I couldn't help watching the two of you interact. I've always had a soft spot for cute couples." "CC couples," the two of them exclaimed in shock. They then went on to stammer out a series of denials that they weren't a couple, and nothing was going on with them. However, it just sounded a lot like gibberish to Tenten. "Sorry I vejotraning so please see excuse smethen you very much for having gestentanile see you later Naruto Kuin." Hinata, having had her fill of embarrassment for the day, quickly gave an excuse and ran out the door before either of them could respond. Tenten was surprised at her rapid exit, though Naruto looked like he expected it. He was still slightly upset about her sudden absence, but he knew that she had to leave anyway. Scratching his cheek, Naruto told Tenten that he had to leave as well, but he would be back soon to pay for the fans. He then left the store as well, though not quite as quickly as Hinata did. Blinking at the sudden vacancy of her store, Tenten mused to herself. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Shrugging it off, she decided just to clean up around the store until Naruto came back, since it seemed he had found a way to buy the fans. Now that I think about it, I never did ask why they needed something for wind chakra in the first place. She tried to think of any reason that they would need it specifically for wind chakra, but she couldn't. Oh well, I guess I'll let them have their secrets. It's the least I could do after how much Niji has changed since his fight with Naruto. This will just be my way of repaying him. Naruto was on his way back to his new house. He still wasn't quite used to saying that yet. He had managed to meet with Tsunade and got the required funds to buy the battle fans as a present for Temari. She relinquished them without too much trouble, only teasing him for a few minutes and then reminding him that she would take the funds out of his family's account once he got access to them. After that, he had returned to Tenten's family store and bought the fans, who had already packaged them, even though she seemed a little surprised that he managed to get the money. So, now here he was on the way to give Temari her birthday gift. He had begun to walk towards his old apartment before he realized that he didn't live there anymore. Still, he took the opportunity to visit it one last time, for the sake of both checking to make sure the Umbu didn't miss anything and to give him some more time to think about how to give the gift to Temari. The trip was brief though, since it seemed that the Umbu were thorough and didn't leave anything behind from what he could tell. Besides, now that he had a decent home and people there waiting, he didn't feel like waiting around in an empty apartment for longer than he had to. He had done that enough to last a lifetime. Before Naruto knew it, he was standing in front of the door to his and Temari's house that they had begun living in just yesterday. Suddenly, the package in his hands felt like it weighed 5 times as much, and it took all he had to not drop it then and there. He stood there for several minutes, hesitating on whether to open the door or not and what would be waiting on the other side. What do I do? I've never actually bought a birthday gift before, much less given one to someone else. How am I supposed to do it? What do I say? Will Temari and her brothers even be here? Or are they somewhere else? What if this was all just a big prank and I'm really going to be alone again? As Naruto began second-guessing everything, he started to shuffle around, feeling increasingly nervous. Unfortunately for him, it seemed that his shuffling was louder than he thought and the people inside heard it. So, while Naruto was still contemplating whether to go inside and what to say, the door opened in front of him. Looking up in surprise, he was shocked to come face to face with Temari's green eyes looking at him. She raised an eyebrow at him, confused as to why he was just standing outside or looking surprised to see her. "What are you doing waiting outside the door for, Naruto? It's your house, so it's not like you have to knock to come in." She looked down and saw that he was holding some kind of package. She was curious what was in it, but decided that it wasn't her place to pry. Opening the door further, she stepped aside and ushered him in with a smirk. "Come on in, before someone picks you up for loitering." His eyes widened before he smiled. "Thanks," he said with a nod before entering the house. However, as he entered, he noticed that Gaara and Kankuro were at the dining table, looking at them both. That wasn't too strange in itself, but the modest cake sitting on the table wasn't something he was expecting to see. "Huh? What's going on?" Naruto asked before he could stop himself. Temari answered him, "Oh, my brothers just thought that we should celebrate my birthday in some way. It honestly took a long time to even find a cake. I told them not to worry about it, but they never listen." The last part she raised her voice slightly to get the point across to her brothers, but they merely stared blankly in return. Gaara tilted his head, while Kankuro gave a thumbs up and said, "Oh, get off your high horse, Temari. I just wanted an excuse to eat some cake." Shaking her head in exasperation, she glanced back at Naruto, who seemed frozen now. Closing the door behind them, she nudged her head towards the table and said, "Come on, let's go join them. No use in letting the cake go to waste." To her surprise, however, Naruto shook his head. "And no, I probably shouldn't. This is a family thing, right? So, I'll just go back and train for a little longer until you guys are done." Temari quirked an eyebrow at his reasoning. "Don't worry so much about it. It's just some cake. Sure, the three of us are family, but it's not like that means no one else can join us." Seeing that Naruto still didn't look convinced, she looked away for just a moment before adding in a small voice, "Besides, you're going to be family one day anyway, so you might as well eat with us now. We can just call it practice for the future." Naruto's eyes shot back up to her in surprise, but she was still looking away with slightly red cheeks. He glanced over at her brothers to see their reactions and was shocked to see that they didn't oppose. Gaara nodded to him with a small smile, while Kankuro shrugged his shoulders but didn't do anything to dissuade him. He felt a lump in the back of his throat at their invitation to him, but pushed it down to the best of his ability. Speaking at almost a whisper, he said, "Well, if you all insist, then I guess I've got no choice." With that, Naruto made his way over to the table, ready to eat what was hopefully the first of many birthday cakes in his life, all while the three siblings wore small smiles of their own. Chapter 13, The Gift of Family. Naruto had tried to imagine how things would look for him in the future many times. Becoming Hokage was obviously what he imagined the most. How he would be the leader of the village, and everyone would have to look up to him. That way no one would be able to ignore him then, and he would have the respect he always wanted. He imagined himself in that chair with the Hokage hat on too many times to even count. Having someone else to come home to was also another one of his frequent fantasies. However, that one varied a little bit more. Sometimes it would be during the present, and he would hope that when he walked through the door of his apartment and announced that he was home, his parents that he didn't know the faces of would be there to welcome him home. Other times, he would wonder what it would be like in the future to have someone to welcome him home. Most of the time he had tried to imagine Sakura in that role, but it didn't always work out. Usually because he had a hard time imagining Sakura as welcoming even if it was a fantasy. Occasionally, he would try to conjure up an image in his mind of the perfect girl to come home to, but it was always hazy. He even had some less frequent things he thought about, like how it would be to own a pet or work at a ramen shop. Nothing too special, just passing thoughts, because any of that would be better than the life he had been living. Being better than being lonely all the time as an outcast wasn't a very high bar to beat. Of course, recently that had begun to change. Ever since he had graduated, things had slowly begun to improve for him. He had started to gain people that he cared about and, in turn, they cared about him. So, he slowly began to fantasize less about how he wanted his life to be and began to live more in the moment. He still fell back on his old habits sometimes, but it didn't happen nearly as often, and the circumstances of some of those dreams had changed lately. However, not once in all his years had he imagined that he would be sitting in a brand new house attending the first birthday party he had ever been to with three siblings from a different village that had recently been his enemies, one of which he was even engaged to. Well, this is kind of awkward, Naruto thought. After accepting Temari's offer to celebrate her birthday with them, he had gone over to the table and sat down with her siblings. Of course, he had to put the package he was carrying on top of the table, which drew everyone's attention to it, but no one brought it up. Naruto shot up a little though when Temari decided to sit next to him. He wasn't sure if it was a conscious decision or not, but it still made him a little nervous. It wasn't because she had done anything specific or made him feel worried for any reason. He just mainly didn't know how to feel around her still. He hadn't been able to talk to her to see how she felt about this whole arrangement and didn't want to accidentally make her upset. She was also a really pretty girl, and sitting right next to her made that a lot more obvious. Sure, he had been right beside Hinata several times and even hugged her, but for some reason he focused more on Temari's looks at the moment. It wasn't because Hinata wasn't pretty, because she was. Naruto thought she kept getting prettier and cuter every day he saw her. However, something about Temari was different. Maybe it was because she was older that he noticed it more. She had a more clearly defined figure and was beginning to have that allure that women tended to possess. It might also be the way that she held herself. She was a lot more confident than most people he knew, and it was one of the first things he noticed about her. It could even just be her slightly different look due to her being from another village. Whatever the case, it caused Naruto's usually high confidence to falter, and for once he didn't have anything to say as he was sitting with the Sand siblings. He tried to keep his eyes on the table for the most part, but when he glanced around, he saw the others didn't really know what to say either. Although for Gaara that was probably normal. Eventually, Temari was the one to take the plunge. Clearing her throat, she looked at her siblings and then at Naruto before she asked, "So, how about we try this cake that we looked so hard for?" Her words seemed to cause a sigh of relief to echo across the table, at least for Naruto and Kankuro. Everyone else nodded their heads and she began to cut the cake into pieces. Since they originally only planned on having enough for 3 people, the cake wasn't very big in the first place. It was enough for the 4 of them to each have a decent portion though, and they all had their plates in front of them after a few moments. Naruto was about to start digging into it when he thought of someone else who should have been there. "Hey, what about your team, sensei?" Baki, right? Why isn't he celebrating with you guys?" The siblings looked at him in slight surprise at the question before Temari answered for them. "No, he doesn't really do this kind of stuff. It's not like we would mind him being around, but he's a real serious guy, so I don't think he would usually go to a party or anything." Her siblings nodded in agreement, with Kankuro adding in, "That's right. Besides, we like Baki-sensei and he likes us, but we're not close enough for that stuff. We're just students and teacher, and that's enough for us." Of course, they left out another reason that Baki wasn't joining them was because he was being watched even closer than they were. Since he was a high-ranking jonin of Suna and he was the one they suspected had killed their spy during the Chunin exams, he figured it was best not to arouse suspicion in any way. So, he had been mostly on his lonesome in places where the Umbu could easily keep tabs on him. "Oh, okay. I got you," Naruto said, looking back down at his cake. He could understand that they weren't super attached to their sensei, but it was still kind of weird for him. He would want Kakashi at any celebration he was having, even if the man would probably be late and show up after it was over. Still, maybe that was just because of how lonely he grew up that he didn't want to give up anybody that even just gave him the time of day. Shrugging it off for now, Naruto turned his attention back to the cake in front of him. Truthfully, he had been curious about it ever since he walked in the door, but he didn't want to make anyone mad by asking if he could have a slice. Now that it was in front of him though, he was a little hesitant about taking a bite, worried that it wouldn't live up to his expectations. He had always seen other people enjoying them on their birthdays or other celebrations, but never had the opportunity to eat one himself. Slowly, Naruto pushed his fork down to get a piece of the cake before he began bringing it back up to his mouth. He glanced around the table and saw everyone else enjoying their slices, so he figured it had to at least be decent. Opening his mouth, he went ahead and had the first bite of cake he ever had. Then he immediately went back and had another. And another. Before he knew it, his slice of cake was all gone, and he felt like he finally understood why everyone always had cake on their birthday. "That was amazing," Naruto exclaimed to the surprise of the siblings. "Are all cakes that good? If they are, then I bet the cake shops are always wrapped up in people wanting to buy them." Temari and Kankuro looked at Naruto in confusion. They exchanged a wordless glance before looking over at Gaara, who was just listening to Naruto talk about how good cakes were with his usual expressionless face. Although they could tell that he was enjoying it based on the small upturn of his mouth that they could see. Deciding that now might be a good time to get some more answers about some of the mysteries surrounding Naruto, she began to answer him. "Well, this cake was pretty good, but it wasn't the best I've ever had. It's probably slightly above average to how most cakes taste, I would say." That just served to excite Naruto more. "No way. You mean there's even better ones out there? I've got to try another one sometime," I still prefer ramen, but this is definitely a close second in terms of flavor. Naruto, Temari started, sounding unsure of herself. This isn't your first time having cake, right? However, to the surprise of Temari and Kankuro, Naruto nodded. That's right. I've seen it before, but I've never actually been able to eat any until now. Why? Surely people here in Konoha have cake for their birthdays. Did you never eat any at someone else's birthday party? Not even your own. Naruto looked down from Temari's words. In a smaller voice than any of them had heard from him, he answered. No, this is the first birthday I've ever been to. People have never really liked me, so getting invited to their birthday party wasn't going to happen. Temari gained a frown at his words. Really? Not even your own friends or teammates? Shaking his head, Naruto answered her question. I've only become friends with most of them in the past half year since I graduated. Even now, I wouldn't say I'm that close to all of them. They mostly just seem to tolerate me more. Even Hinata? Naruto's cheeks grew red at that. Hinata-chan is different. Shaking off his embarrassment, Naruto continued with his explanation. Still, we've only grown close these past few weeks. Before that, we never really talked besides a few words. I guess I can see that, Temari thought to herself. I don't remember her very well from the Chunin exams, but Hinata does seem a little more outspoken now than she did then. I imagine that's partly due to Naruto's influence, so it makes sense that they didn't speak much before now. Well, what about your own birthday then? She said, hoping that he at least had someone to celebrate with at some point. We know you didn't have your parents around, but surely you had a caretaker at some point. Not that I can remember, Naruto replied in a somber tone. I'm sure that I had people taking care of me when I was a baby, but I don't know who they were. Ever since I can remember, I've always lived in that apartment by myself. Old Man Third would occasionally come around and give me money for the month, but he didn't usually stay for too long. That's not right, Temari thought, her mood plummeting. Why would Konoha do something like that? Even Gaara wasn't left alone just like that, even if he probably wanted to be. How did Naruto even survive like that? If he's been an outcast for as long as he can remember, then why does he have the scorn of so many people? Kankuro and Gaara had similar thoughts, although Gaara's was mainly focused on how Naruto endured so much just like him, and yet they turned out to be so different. Sensing that he was causing the mood to begin to plummet, Naruto quickly began to try to bring the spirits back up. Waving his hands in front of him, he exclaimed, Wait, it wasn't so bad. Old Man Third still wished me happy birthday every year. So did Old Man Tucci and Iam. They even let me eat for free for a day as a gift. Temari just looked back at him deadpan. That doesn't make it much better, Naruto. He flinched slightly at her words, causing Temari to let out a sigh. Well, we can't do anything about what's already happened, but we can help you now. Naruto looked at Temari with a confused expression. She just smiled back at him, which caused him to blush slightly. From now on, you're welcome to all my birthdays. In fact, I expect you to be there. I'm sure that Kankuro and Gaara would agree with me. Naruto's eyes went wide as he whipped his head around to look at Gaara and Kankuro. They both nodded their heads in affirmation, with Gaara having a small smile and Kankuro offering a thumbs up. Feeling overwhelmed by their generosity, Naruto's eyes shot back down to his lap. But what if people don't like that you're hanging around me? It might cause you guys to be hated by the village. Kankuro piped up with his opinion. Hate to break it to you, but most of the village already hates us anyway. I don't think being seen with you is going to make too much of a difference. Besides, you're stuck with me anyway. Temari interjected with a smirk. So, we might as well get along and have some fun when we can. If the village can't see you for who you really are, well then, we'll just have the joy of knowing the real you to ourselves. Naruto felt his eyes tearing up at their kindness and the good they saw in him. Bringing his arm up to his face, he tried to hide his eyes before he muttered out a soft, thank you. The siblings just smiled in response, although he was unable to see it. After he had calmed down, Naruto lowered his arm to bring his gaze back to the siblings. He was grateful they didn't say anything about his little moment, although from the look Temari threw towards Kankuro, he could guess that she was making sure they didn't. Sorry about that, Naruto said bashfully. However, Temari just brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal, with her brothers nodding in agreement. Thanks again for letting me stay with you guys today. But I don't really know what goes on in a birthday party, Naruto stated with a slight bit of reluctance. What do you normally do for one? To his surprise, Temari and Kankuro both shrugged their shoulders. Honestly, we don't really know too much more than you do, Kankuro replied. We usually just treat it like a normal day, but we try to get a cake or some other treat if we can. Temari nodded. That's right. Since nobody associated with us much when we grew up, we've mostly just kept our celebrations small and to ourselves. This is actually the first time that Gaara has stayed around for one of our celebrations since he was. She trailed off at the end, but everyone knew what she was implying. Gaara gained a guilty look at her words, knowing just how much trouble and grief he had caused his siblings throughout the years. Sorry, Gaara. I didn't mean to bring any of that up. Temari apologized. She had forgiven him in her heart, and she was truly grateful to have her baby brother back. However, sometimes it was hard to forget just how splintered their family truly was up until recently. No, it's fine, Gaara said. I'm aware just how hard I made your lives, Temari, Kankuro. I regret all the damage I've caused, but I can't undo any of it. I'm just glad you still allow me to be around you and try to atone for my past mistakes. Of course, Gaara, you'll always be our little brother. Temari replied with a smile. She knew that Kankuro was still hesitant around Gaara sometimes, but he had been getting better recently. He still felt the same way she did after all, even if he didn't show it as much as her. She turned towards Naruto, who was surprised to see the attention on him. We have to thank you as well, Naruto. It's only because of you helping Gaara to change that we're even all here together in the first place. Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. I didn't really do that much. He just reminded me so much of myself that I had to try to help him however I could. You did a lot more than you think, Temari said, shaking her head. She was still curious about why Naruto thought he and Gaara were similar and the reasons he was treated like he was. However, she decided that right now wasn't a good time to dig too much into that, and it would be better if they just focused on having a fun night together. Well, we might not have any traditions we normally do for our birthdays, but that doesn't mean we can't still enjoy ourselves. Temari stood up from her chair and began to gather all the dirty plates to take them to the kitchen so they would have the table free. We can't really go out and do much this late, but we did manage to pick up some cards while we were out shopping for a cake. You don't mind playing, do you, Naruto? I don't mind. It sounds fun to me, he answered, trying not to show how excited he was to play cards with someone else, unlike how he normally just had to play against himself. You say that now, but you should know that Temari is a big cheater. Kankuro spoke up in an amused tone. You have to watch her to make sure she isn't sneaking cards. I don't cheat, Temari yelled indignantly. You're just a sore loser. Oh yeah? Then why did you have that extra card last time we played? It fell down from one of our previous rounds. I was just picking it back up. Temari and Kankuro continued to yell excuses back and forth until they began to argue about things that didn't even have to do with what they were talking about before. All the while, Naruto was sitting nervously in the middle, not sure what to do, and Gaara just watched with a small smile on his face. I feel like I've gotten myself into something I shouldn't have, Naruto thought to himself. It had been a few hours since they started playing cards, and Naruto had learned several things in that time. First, Kankuro was telling the truth about Temari cheating. Although he only managed to catch it himself a few times, Kankuro pointed it out whenever he saw it as well. Whether it was hiding a card up her sleeve or changing something when she thought no one was looking, she did whatever she could to get an advantage. He even saw her using wind jutsu to turn everyone else's cards around. In fact, it seemed like she was getting more enjoyment out of what she could get away with than the actual game itself. Second, Temari was right about Kankuro being a sore loser. Every hand he lost, he always seemed to have an excuse. Usually that Temari was cheating. What they didn't mention was that Kankuro was a big cheater as well. He was constantly using his chakra threads to grab the cards he needed and didn't have any remorse about it. Third, nobody could get a read on Gaara. Ever since the game started, Gaara had maintained the same expression no matter what kind of hand he had. It was honestly both really impressive and really terrifying. His siblings must have thought so as well, because they didn't try to mess with his cards too often. Naruto wasn't even sure if Gaara had been trying to cheat at all, and neither Temari nor Kankuro accused him of it, which was pretty scary if he was cheating and none of them were able to catch it. Finally, ugh. How did you win again, Naruto? You have to be cheating. Naruto had found out that he apparently had very good luck. Either that or he was just a natural at the game, which he doubted since he didn't even know all the rules. Almost every round he had been able to get a hand that would beat everyone else's. The few times he had a bad hand, either Temari or Kankuro or both would cheat and replace his cards with some of theirs, only for them to somehow give him the perfect combination of cards that he needed to win. It was honestly kind of funny how bad he was beating the rest without even resorting to cheating. However, it seemed like they were beginning to get tired of it though. The last few hands Temari and Kankuro had put aside their own feud to try and win against Naruto. When it became clear that they couldn't beat his luck, they began to feel dejected, making Naruto feel guilty about winning so much. I swear I'm not cheating, guys. I'm just getting lucky, Naruto explained, hoping that it would alleviate some of the tension. Bullshit. Temari smacked Kankuro upside the head, both for the language and the aggressive tone. Ignore him, Naruto. He just gets too much into the game sometimes and says things he shouldn't. Kankuro grumbled at her words but didn't say anything to oppose her, causing Naruto to laugh nervously, hoping that what she said was true and he didn't make anybody too mad. Still though, that's probably enough cards for one night. We shouldn't push it too much or else somebody really might get upset. Naruto and Gaara nodded, understanding her reasoning. Hopefully the two of you had fun though, Temari said, looking at Gaara and Naruto. She purposely didn't include Kankuro because she knew that he enjoyed himself even if he wouldn't admit it. It was enjoyable, sister, Gaara stated with that small smile on his face that had been slowly becoming more common around them. Temari shot back her own smile in return before turning her attention to Naruto, who had a wide grin on his face after noticing she was looking at him. Yeah, it was great. A lot better than playing cards by myself. Her smile slipped just a little before she caught herself. That's good then. We'll have to play some other time when we get the chance. Her smile turned into a smirk before adding, though next time I won't go so easy on you. I'll make sure to beat that luck of yours and win. Naruto gulped a little, nervous at how competitive she got yet also strangely fascinated at the same time. Blushing a little bit, he tried to change the subject to get her attention off him. So what are you guys going to do now? Temari shrugged. I don't know. It's getting pretty late, so we might as well head to bed. Rest when you can and all that. Huh? But aren't you supposed to open presents on your birthday? Or was I wrong about that? No, you're right, Temari said, shaking her head. However, Gaara and Kankuro already gave me their presents back in Suna before we left. Since we weren't sure if we would have time to celebrate here, they figured that was the best thing to do. Her brothers nodded. Gaara said he gave her a new set of kunai while Kankuro gave her some cooking pots and pans. Temari of course added how she ended up knocking Kankuro on the ground with one of the pans when he said to use them to cook for him. Naruto shuddered when he heard that. But yeah, that's why there's no presents today. Since Baki-sensei isn't really one for giving gifts, it's only my brothers that get me them, Temari said in a matter-of-fact tone. She wasn't upset by it. It was just something she had grown used to. Oh, Naruto said dumbly. Now I feel kind of weird that I still got her a present when she doesn't have any others to go with it. However, Temari took his silence as a sign that he felt bad about her not getting much. Possibly also because he didn't get her anything either. Don't worry about it, she reassured him. It's not like you have to have a lot of presents to have a good birthday. What's more important is that you can spend it with the people you care about. To her surprise though, Naruto shook his head. It's not that, he said before rubbing the back of his head in embarrassment. I actually got you a present earlier today, but I wasn't sure when to give it to you. I guess now would be a good time then if you don't have any others. Temari looked at Naruto with her eyes wide, shocked that he actually got her something when he only just found out about it. She didn't see what her brother's reactions were, but she was sure they were surprised too. He actually got me something? That's surprising. I didn't think Naruto would be the kind to do something like that. I guess I shouldn't think that way, but it's hard not to based off the impressions I have of him. Still, I doubt it's anything too special since it's so last minute. She watched as Naruto went to get the package he had placed off to the side earlier in the afternoon. She had been curious what it was for, but it looked like she had her answer now. Naruto slowly walked back to her, seemingly reluctant to actually give her the gift. I wasn't too sure what to get for you. He started off nervously, probably due to both not knowing her that well as this most likely being the first gift he had ever given. But Hinata-chan helped me with it. She gave me some advice and even came to look for a gift with me. So hopefully you like it. He finished his speech by thrusting the box out towards Temari. Naruto knew that Hinata had said not to mention her when he gave her the gift, but he felt bad about taking all the credit when she helped him so much. She looked at the box curiously before picking it up to feel its weight. It wasn't very heavy, but that didn't help narrow it down much. He said that Hinata helped him out. While she does seem like a nice girl, I'm surprised that she would actually help Naruto pick out a gift for another girl when she likes him herself. Even if we're both supposed to marry him anyway. Hopefully this means that Hinata stopped him from picking out something too weird. Deciding that she might as well see what he got her, she went ahead and opened the box only to freeze at what she saw inside. Her brothers noticed her hesitation and got closer to see what was inside as well. However, to them all that they saw was a pair of metal sticks. Huh? What are those? Kankuro asked in confusion. Temari didn't answer him with words though, knowing what they were as soon as she had opened the box. She had wanted some for a long time and had never been able to get them. The weapons store in Suna mostly focused on war fans, and the few battle fans she saw weren't very high quality. Sure, she could have probably got some imported from somewhere, but that would have been crazy expensive, and she wasn't sure what the best place to get them from would be anyway. How did Naruto even get these? As far as I know, Konoha doesn't have many wind users, so something like battle fans would be pretty rare. Maybe they're cheaply made, and that's how he was able to get these. With shaking hands, she put the box down on the table and reached inside to grab the two handles. Once she had gotten them out, she admired them for a moment before flicking her wrists to open them. As soon as she did, she was surprised once again by what she saw along with her brothers, who finally understood what she was holding. Is that chakra metal? I didn't even know they made fans from chakra metal. As if to test them, Temari very carefully infused a little bit of wind chakra into the fans and was shocked when she felt it travel into the weapon. It is, and it barely even took any effort for me to do it. Usually when I use my war fan, I have to infuse a lot of chakra to get the wind blasts I use. Yet, these I can tell won't drain my chakra nearly as fast. Temari wanted to test them out more, both to see how sharp the metal was and how powerful the wind blasts were. However, she didn't want to mess up anything in the house, and she wasn't supposed to be training without Kakashi or someone else qualified watching over her for now. So, reluctantly, she let the chakra dissipate and put the fans back in the box, resolving to try them out as soon as she was able. She looked over towards Naruto, who was watching her anxiously. Realizing that she had probably given him a bad impression by falling silent and inspecting his gift for so long, she gave him a small smile. Naruto, where'd you get these? No, wait, how'd you even afford them? There's no way you were able to get these cheap, and I'm sure you don't have that much money. Temari paused before remembering that Hinata had helped him pick it out. Did Hinata pay for these? No, I paid for them, Naruto exclaimed. He wasn't sure why, but he felt like it would have been thing if Hinata had been the one to pay for them. Meanwhile, Temari sighed in relief. That's good, I guess. It would have been pretty scummy of him to get the girl that likes him to pay for a gift for another girl. Scratching his head, Naruto went ahead and answered her other questions. Anyway, I got them from Tenten's shop, or I guess it's her family's shop. Hinata-chan was the one that showed me the place. As for the money, well, I asked Lady Badesh, or Lady Tsunade, if I could get some of my parents' money early to pay for it. The name Tenten rang a bell in Temari's mind for some reason, but she couldn't place just where she heard it from. Instead, she focused on the other part that Naruto talked about. You didn't have to do that, Naruto. I don't know how much it cost, but I can tell just by looking at it that it wasn't cheap. You shouldn't spend so much money on something just for me. However, Naruto just smiled back in response. Don't worry about it. I asked how much it would hurt the money my parents had, and Lady Tsunade said it would barely dent it. I guess I didn't realize just how loaded they were, but she said it was to be expected since Dad was the Hokage and Mom had inherited the Uzumaki fortune. Besides, once I saw it, I knew that it would be perfect for you. Temari still felt bad about Naruto spending so much money on her though. She was about to tell Naruto that she couldn't accept them when she saw just how excited his face still was after talking about how he thought the gift fit her. Glancing over to her brothers, she saw they were giving her expectant looks, likely knowing what she was thinking. Sighing to herself in her head, she chose to accept the gift instead of trying to rebuke it. She didn't think that she deserved such a nice gift, but she also didn't want to upset Naruto and reject his gift right in front of him. Besides, it really is perfect, she thought to herself with a warm smile. Naruto, these are amazing. Thank you so much for your gift. Temari bowed in gratitude while still clutching the box close to her. I'll be sure to treasure them. Naruto's smile widened upon hearing Temari's words. Jumping up in excitement, he yelled, "All right?" Temari straightened up and chuckled in amusement at his excitement. Gaara and Kankuro came up to her and wished her a happy birthday once again, congratulating her on the gift she got. She then watched as they went over to talk to Naruto, who was still in the midst of his own celebration. Kankuro had slung his arm over Naruto's shoulders and was seemingly interrogating him about the gift he had gotten her while Gaara stood by silently. Temari didn't hear exactly what they were saying since Kankuro was actually talking quietly for once, but she could tell he was teasing Naruto. It all seemed to be in good fun, though, considering the both of them had smiles on their faces even if Naruto's was slightly embarrassed. Add on to that the fact that Gaara was listening in with his own small smile, and it painted a picture of all the boys getting along. Temari wasn't in too big of a rush to join them. She was content to merely watch the merriment and see something that she had been wanting for her whole life. Both of her brothers smiling and laughing together. And all of it was because of the boy that was in the center of it. The boy who changed their entire family for the better. Unconsciously, she gripped the box she was holding against her tighter as she focused on Naruto laughing at something Kankuro said, while Gaara shook his head in exasperation. Temari felt her own smile widen and her cheeks begin to burn as she watched them all interact. She wasn't sure what the future would look like for her family, but she hoped that whatever came, she would be able to witness more moments like this, all of them laughing and enjoying the life they had together. Chapter 14, Memories of Another. Naruto could now say he enjoyed birthday parties. Or at least he enjoyed his first experience with one. Even though it wasn't who he ever expected to be celebrating with, Temari and her siblings made the effort to make him feel included, which made all the difference in the world to him. Still, all good things had to come to an end, and before he knew it, they had all started to clean up any mess they made before heading to bed. It didn't take too long, and after telling each other goodnight, everyone went to their rooms. Naruto did the same, and after taking a shower and changing into his pajamas with his favorite nightcap, he fell onto the bed. Exhausted from the fun but long day, he knew that it wouldn't be too long before he was knocked out, except that he couldn't fall asleep. He thought that if he could just get comfortable then he would be able to sleep, but after tossing and turning for over an hour, he came to the conclusion that it wouldn't be that easy. Letting out a sigh, he kicked the covers off of him, took off his nightcap, and began to head downstairs, hoping that maybe a drink would be able to help him. Slowly opening his door to hopefully not wake up the other occupants of his house, Naruto put all his ninja training to the test as he went down the stairs in the quietest way possible. Once he was in the clear, he made his way over to the kitchen and got himself a glass of water before downing it in a few minutes. Ah, that feels better, he sighed to himself in relief, before putting the glass in the sink. He was just about to start making his way back to his room when he heard the front door opening and someone stepping outside. Huh? Someone else is still up. Naruto thought about just letting them be, but then he remembered that even if it was partly just for appearances, he was still technically supposed to be watching over the Sand siblings. So, he was probably supposed to make sure whoever left wasn't up to something, even if he doubted they were. He silently made his way over to the door before opening it and stepping outside. He briefly shuddered at the unexpected chill. It wasn't too bad, but the hot season had ended not too long ago, so the days were beginning to slowly cool down. Brushing it off, he closed the door behind him before looking around to see if he could spot the person who left. Not seeing them upon first glance, Naruto made his way around to the back of the house, wondering if he might have better luck over there. Once he turned the corner, he let out a sigh of relief upon seeing the womanly figure standing out in clearing, a good distance from the house. So Temari was the one that left. Naruto thought to himself. Still, what's she doing out here? Could she not sleep either? He was about to speak up and ask her when she extended her arms from her body. Looking at her hands, he saw that she was holding the battle fans he had gotten her just a few hours ago. Without prompting, she crouched down slightly before shooting forward in a flurry of motion. With surprising grace that Naruto wasn't expecting from Temari, he watched as she went through practice motions with her fans. Each one seemed to focus on different aspects. Some were very aggressive and had Temari swinging at an invisible opponent with intense ferocity while focusing on the cutting aspect of the fans. Others had her playing a more defensive role as she backed up while using wider arcs that were most likely meant to be used with wind jutsu to push the opponent back. She even took to blending different styles together, switching from defense to offense seamlessly. He did notice she would pause ever so slightly whenever she made a particularly strong motion. Most likely that would be a point where she would be weaving in wind jutsus but didn't want to do so at a time like this. Still, even missing those key aspects, it was easy to see that Temari was a master at her craft. Even to someone like Naruto who had no idea what it was supposed to look like in the first place. Eventually, Temari's reps came to an end, as she finished one rather long set of strikes before performing a backflip back several feet. Once she landed, she started to pant slightly in exhaustion as she wiped her brow free of sweat. Naruto's jaw dropped as he stared at Temari. It was impressive enough to see her performing all those motions with her fans. Now though, as she was standing in the moonlight with a grin plastered across her face despite the sweat running down it, he was only able to have a single thought. She's so beautiful. So are you gonna actually say anything? Or were you just planning on staring at me all night? Temari's words snapped Naruto out of his trance as he noticed she was looking right at him and walking his way. Flushing red at being caught staring, he averted his gaze before asking, "Why, you knew I was watching you?" "Of course," she answered with a smirk. "A shinobi must always be aware of their surroundings after all. I just figured I would let you see what a real shinobi is capable of." She sounded self-assured in her words, and it was probably mostly true. However, there was a hint of something else in there that Naruto couldn't pinpoint as well. He was curious about it but shook it off and decided to ask about her training. Coughing slightly to get his embarrassment under control, he asked after a moment, "So, what was all that movement about anyway?" "It was different styles that I've learned about fighting with battle fans over the years," she answered in a more serious tone. "Even though I haven't had any to use with it until now, I've still practiced the motions with training versions whenever I had some free time. Since I knew that I wanted to use battle fans in combination with my war fan, I figured it would be a good idea to get a leg up on fighting styles whenever I did eventually obtain a good fan." Whoa. She puts that much effort into something that she isn't even going to use immediately? That's... Naruto sucked in a breath before releasing it. Amazing. Temari blushed slightly at the praise, not expecting something like that to come from Naruto. "So, my turn for a question," she said, trying to change the subject. "Why are you up so late anyway? I thought everyone else had already gone to bed." Naruto shrugged before answering. "Couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to get something to drink when I saw the front door open. Figured I should see what was up and then I saw you out here." "You too, huh?" Temari replied with a slight smile. She turned away from Naruto to look at the moon before continuing. "I couldn't fall asleep either, so I figured I would at least put the time to use on something productive. To be honest, I haven't slept good in a while and it's starting to weigh on me a little bit." Naruto was surprised at the confession that she hadn't been sleeping well. I took her as someone who wouldn't admit any kind of weakness like that, he thought while turning to look at the moon himself. "I suppose I can see why she's been having trouble though. Her entire life has been upended in just a week. It would be more surprising if she didn't have any problems." They fell into silence for a while, with nothing but the moon's glow and the night breeze to accompany them. Eventually, though, Naruto decided to ask her something that had been weighing on his mind ever since he saw her yesterday. "Hey, Temari?" He saw her glance at him from the side of his eye, but he kept his gaze forward. "Do you hate this? Being forced to live in our village. Forced to marry me?" Temari was surprised by the straightforwardness of his question. though she realized quickly that she shouldn't be since that was just the kind of person that Naruto was. She fell silent for a while after that, and Naruto was worried that she wouldn't even answer him. After a few minutes of contemplation, she did answer him though. "I would be lying if I said I liked it," she started with a sigh. "I don't have anything against your village necessarily, but it's not home. I've lived in Tsunade my whole life and I love it, despite all of its problems. I wanted to become a great kunoichi, so I could serve the village that I loved and help to make it even better." She looked down in sadness before continuing. "I know it's our fault that it came to this, but I can't help but be frustrated. My dream got cut short before it even truly began. Even if I'm helping my village now with this marriage, I likely won't be able to ever see it again." Temari felt tears coming on, but she was too proud to let them fall in front of someone else. However, she was also too far gone to just stop talking as well. "Now I have to live in the village that we lost to." Her voice was steadily becoming louder, but she didn't notice. "A village where everybody probably hates me, while my brothers leave me all alone and return home. Not to mention the fact that I'm even having my future ripped away, and I have to marry somebody I barely even know." As soon as she finished her rant, she noticed that Naruto was looking at her with sadness in his eyes. It was only then that she realized just how much she let slip out. "Sorry," she muttered, before turning her head away to wipe her eyes. They fell back into awkward silence as Temari was trying to compose herself again while Naruto was thinking about what the right thing to say was. "I don't hate you, by the way." Temari was the one to speak up, still not looking in Naruto's direction. "I know this wasn't exactly your choice either, and you're being forced into it as much as me. Yet, you've been nothing but welcoming since I got here, and even got me such a nice gift when you only just learned it was my birthday." Temari's mouth turned upwards for a few seconds before it dropped again. "Still, I can't help but be a little envious. You get to stay and live here in the village that you love while I'm forced away from my own. I know it's not right of me to think like that, but I can't change how I feel." She grew silent again, having gotten out everything she needed to say. She knew it was wrong to vent all her problems to Naruto, but once she started, she couldn't stop herself. Still, she couldn't bring herself to see the look on Naruto's face, so she kept her gaze focused on the moon instead. "She's been holding all this in," Naruto thought to himself in both sadness and astonishment. "Yet, even despite that, she still doesn't hate me and wants to do the best for her village. I think it's perfectly fine for you to feel that way." Temari turned to Naruto in surprise at his words and saw that he was smiling at her. "I don't think anyone expects you to just suddenly be alright with all this. I mean, I'm still not sure how I feel about all this yet either." Naruto rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment before admitting, "Honestly, I'm still kinda scared about this whole thing. I've never had a family or anything like that, and now I'm supposed to be getting married to 2 girls. It's a pretty big change for someone like me. Still, I know I'm not alone." Naruto's expression changed to one of gratitude as he recalled all those who had helped him. "I know that I have people I can turn to if I need help. I've got Lady Bachan, Pervy Sage, Irika-sensei, Kakashi-sensei, and Hinata-chan. I even have Old Man Tucci, Ayam, and all my other friends." Naruto looked Temari directly in the eye and saw how she was listening to his every word. "I know I can count on you too, Temari. That's why you don't have to worry. Just as I have people who can help me, so do you. You have your brothers and your sensei, and I'm sure everyone I talked about would help you if you asked them to." He grew a little bashful before adding in, "And for what it's worth, you can rely on me too. I'll do my best to help you however I can." Temari continued to stare at him after he finished talking. After a few moments though, she couldn't hold it in anymore and began to laugh. "I didn't think it was that funny," Naruto thought with a sweat drop, as she seemed to find something he said extremely amusing. He wanted to stop her and ask just what it was, but it was also a lot more refreshing to see her acting like this instead of being all gloomy like earlier. Eventually, her laugh slowly ebbed into chuckles until she finally quit altogether. Sorry," she apologized with a slight cough. "I wasn't laughing at you or anything, but you helped me put a lot of things into perspective. I had been so focused on everything that I was losing that I lost sight of what I still had, or even what I was gaining." I couldn't help but find it funny to look back on in retrospect. Naruto still looked confused at her words but nodded anyway. She chuckled a little more before beginning to walk away towards the house. I think I'll be able to sleep now. You've given me a lot to think about, so I'm gonna sleep on it and see how I feel in the morning. Thanks for checking on me. Puffing his chest out in pride due to being thanked. Even if he still wasn't sure what it was for, he grinned back. You're welcome. You can count on me whenever you need someone to help you. Temari paused in her tracks. She mulled over something in her head before turning back towards Naruto. He froze for a moment as he saw her walking back towards him. Huh? Did I say something wrong? You know, between your present earlier and our little talk now, you've gone out of your way for me recently. Her words were friendly, but the smirk on her face gave Naruto pause. I'd say something like that would earn you a reward. Before Naruto could say anything in response, she closed the distance between them and leaned down towards him. He flushed at the sudden closeness, causing Temari's smirk to grow wider. He turned his head towards the side to try to hide his embarrassment, but he didn't realize that was exactly what Temari wanted. His embarrassment turned to shock as he felt the press of two lips against his cheek. They lingered there for a moment before retreating. Before Temari fully pulled away though, she whispered a faint "good night, Naruto" in his ear. Naruto's blush turned darker as he felt Temari's warm breath against his ear, causing her to hum in satisfaction. He was still unable to bring himself to look at her, though Temari seemed to have gotten the response she wanted. With the smirk still left on her lips, she turned away without another word and began her walk back towards the house. Once Temari began walking away, Naruto slowly brought his gaze back towards her. He knew it was wrong of him, and he probably should have been freaking out about the fact that Temari had kissed him, even if it was just on the cheek, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from the view of Temari leaving. More specifically, the way her wide hips swung a bit more than normal. Bringing a hand to the cheek that Temari had kissed, Naruto had just one thought cross his mind. I'm going to have a hard time falling asleep tonight. In the end, Naruto's prediction rang true. After standing frozen for a few more minutes after Temari left, he slowly made his way back to his room with the intention of finally getting some shut-eye. Alas, it was not to be, as every time he shut his eyes, all he could see was Temari's smirk before feeling the ghost of her lips against his cheek. Each time it happened, his eyes flew back open and he had to take a moment to calm himself back down. During the course of this, Naruto's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts as he kept trying to find a way to explain why Temari had kissed him. Unfortunately, he never came to a satisfying answer. The best thing that he could come up with was that Temari had been feeling grateful for what he had done for her. Still, it seemed out of character for her to do something like that just because she was grateful. So, much to his displeasure, Naruto spent many hours rolling around in his bed while also rolling around the moment in his head. Eventually, he got sick of repeating the same actions and decided to do something productive with his time if he wasn't going to be able to fall asleep, which was how he found himself at Training Ground 7 before the sun had risen. Although he made sure to leave a shadow clone at the house first since he was still supposed to be keeping a watch on the siblings, but he also needed to do something to keep his mind off what happened last night. Figuring that he might as well work on his wind element training, Naruto quickly headed to the nearest tree to get a leaf to practice on. Immediately after, he began to mold his chakra in the hopes of cutting the leaf in his hand. Come on, come on. Just one little cut. Unfortunately, even after several hours of trying, he was unable to manage even the smallest chip in the leaf. He had even tried different leaves from different trees hoping it might make a difference, but it all led to the same result. Before he knew it, the sun had already come up, and he still had no progress to show for it. After concentrating on the leaf in his grip so hard that his face eventually grew red from all the exertion, he finally let out a gasp of air before throwing the leaf into the air in frustration. Ugh! What am I doing wrong? I've tried just about everything I can think of and nothing's worked. Naruto fell to the ground in exhaustion and stared up at the sky, hoping it would give him an answer. This is just like the Rasengan all over again. I couldn't figure out how to do it all until I saw that cat playing with the water balloon. Even after that, I still had to have Pervy Sage give me a tip before I could finish the second step. Sighing at the thought of how much help he had needed, Naruto continued to ponder his options. Is that what I need to do? Do I need to ask someone for help again? I don't really like the idea, but I dislike just sitting around here and getting nothing done even more than that. He mulled over the idea for a little while before trying to think of who might be able to help him. Kakashi-sensei would be my first choice, but it's always a coin flip if he would actually be any help. Pervy Sage isn't likely to tell me anything useful either. Sakura just learned about her own chakra nature with me yesterday, and no way am I asking Sasuke for help. Hinata-chan would probably help me, but I don't want to bother her more after she's already helped me so much lately. All of a sudden, something clicked within Naruto's mind as he stood up and exclaimed to himself, "Ah, how could I forget about Temari? She's like the perfect person to ask about wind chakra." As soon as he said that out loud though, the memories of last night came flooding back to him and a blush took over his face. His jubilation came to a swift end as the feeling of embarrassment quickly took over. Oh right, I'm not sure how to ask Temari for something like that, especially now that I don't know what she thinks of me. Maybe I should just ask someone else for help. He briefly went back through his options in his mind and even extended his list to a few others that he knew, but everything seemed to keep pointing towards Temari. Eventually, he sighed before slapping his hands against his cheeks. "Come on, Naruto. What are you so scared of?" He yelled towards himself. "All you have to do is ask Temari for a few tips. She won't get mad just for that. Besides, you can't let something as small as this get in the way of your dream of becoming Hokage." Nodding to himself at his own pep talk, Naruto made a shadow clone. "All right, go ahead and head back to ask Temari about some tips for wind chakra," he said, pointing at the clone. "Once you're done, come and report back to me so I can get this training underway for real." The clone saluted his maker before quickly running off in the direction of the house to complete his task. Once he was out of sight, the real Naruto smiled in satisfaction before looking back towards the Hokage monument. Fixing his gaze at the carving of the fourth Hokage, Naruto clenched a fist before throwing it towards his dad's likeness. "Watch out, Dad, because I'm going to surpass you and everyone else." Hopefully Temari is awake by now and I'm not the one in for a rude awakening, the clone of Naruto thought with a brief shudder as he approached the house. Even if she is being nice to me, I doubt she would take too kindly to being woken up early if she didn't have to be. The thought wasn't without merit as, even though the sun had already risen, the hour was earlier than most people would choose to wake up. Naruto hadn't gotten to know if Temari was a morning person or not yet, so he had to just hope she was. Even if she was probably used to getting up early due to being a shinobi, that didn't mean that she enjoyed it. Still, those thoughts quickly fell to the wayside as the shadow clone began to walk through the yard to the front door of the house. His home. "It's still pretty crazy to think that I own this house now," he thought in amazement. "Just a few days ago I was living in an apartment all by myself that was the size of a single room in this house. Now I have more space than I know what to do with and the possibility of more in the future." A small smile found its way onto his face as he thought about who he was sharing it with. "Not only that, but I'm also living with other people now. Temari is here and so are her brothers, even if they're not going to be staying very long. And Hinata-chan is going to be living here with me in the future too. I know it's not really the same thing, but it almost feels like I finally know what it's like to have a family just a little bit." With that final thought, the shadow clone reached the door of the house and opened it without fanfare. Stepping inside, he didn't see anyone on first glance, but he could tell that someone was up based on the sounds he heard coming from the kitchen. Closing the door behind him, he began to make his way over towards the source of the sounds. As he walked, he caught a whiff of something cooking coming from the same direction. Even though shadow clones didn't need to eat, he still began to drool slightly at the smell. "Surely the boss won't mind if I get a little food before reporting back," he thought in a daze. "If anything, it's his fault that I'm so hungry since he skipped breakfast before making me." Nodding to himself at his faultless logic, the clone turned the corner to enter the kitchen and began to speak up to whoever it was that was cooking. "Hey, what smells so good? Do you mind if I can get a little bit too?" Naruto slowly trailed off as he finally saw just who it was that was cooking breakfast. Or more accurately, as he saw part of them. There was some bacon sizzling in the pan on the stove over to the side. Clearly, it was the source of the smell he noticed when he walked in. However, there was no one standing by the pan at the moment. Instead, The cook was by the fridge, seemingly looking for something that they needed. Something that must have been in one of the bottom drawers of the fridge, which meant that they were bending over pretty far to look for it. They also weren't wearing any pants, which meant that the shadow clone of Naruto got a full, unobstructed view of the panties clinging tightly to the soft flesh of the girl's rear. In the back of the clone's mind, he knew that it was Temari he had just seen more of than he ever thought possible. However, all that he could process before he fell backwards and hit the floor was a single color: black. Temari jumped when she heard the sound of something hitting the ground, followed by a poof. Whirring around quickly from her spot in the fridge, she was confused when she didn't see anything besides a few wisps of smoke. Huh? I could have sworn I heard Naruto just a moment ago. She would have pondered the strange occurrence further, but the smell of something burning quickly made itself known to her. Eyes going wide in panic, she swiftly turned to where she had been letting the bacon cook on the stove. Ah, crap! In her haste to save the food, the incident was soon forgotten in her mind. Nor did she hear the similar bump that came from upstairs just a moment later. Back at the training ground, Naruto was fully absorbed in his attempts to cut the leaf with his wind chakra. Without warning, his mind was bombarded with images that offered no explanation. Things that he knew he didn't see, but were burned into his mind as if he had experienced them himself. A trip to the house that he was slowly beginning to become accustomed to. The sound and smell of breakfast being made. The sight of Temari's pale thighs leading up to the vision of her rear barely contained by a pair of black panties. Naruto hunched over immediately, dropping the leaf without a care. One hand went to his nose, as if to staunch oncoming blood, while another went to the side of his head as it pounded like never before. Ah! He exclaimed in both confusion and slight pain. What was that? Why would I imagine something like that? The image of Temari bent over the fridge, hem of her night shirt hiked up came to his mind once again. But before he could turn even redder, his mind was once again assaulted with memories. Wincing in pain, he saw himself as he moved around in his room at his new house, organizing some of his things that he didn't get to when he first moved in, watering the few plants that he had brought in from his old apartment, freezing in the middle of the room before falling over suddenly. The experience felt like it lasted for hours, even though it was only a second. Once it was over, Naruto fell to his hands and knees and began gasping for air. His eyes were wide and shifty, and his thoughts were all over the place. What's happening to me? Why am I seeing these things? He tensed up, beginning to think that he was under attack by some sort of genjutsu. Shifting his hand toward his pouch where his shuriken were, he tried to calm his mind and get his breathing under control again. After a few more moments, he was able to stand back up and started to think more clearly. Opening up his shuriken pouch, he pulled one out before glancing at his surroundings. Seeing nothing amiss in his immediate vicinity, he put his finger on the tip of his shuriken before pressing down slightly. Ouch! He hissed and retracted his finger quickly. Examining it, he saw the blood that was flowing from where he had punctured it. Okay, most likely not a genjutsu then, he said to himself with slight relief. Though I can't be sure since I don't know much about genjutsu. All I really remember is Irika-sensei saying that not many people are good enough in genjutsu to make you feel pain realistically. That and the fact that Kakashi-sensei said I wouldn't ever have the talent for it. Shaking his head in an attempt to get himself back on track, he tried to think back on what exactly he saw so he could figure out what was happening to him. Okay, so, somehow I remember heading to the house and walking into breakfast being cooked in the kitchen, only to see Temari. Like that. His face began to turn red again, but he pushed past the embarrassment. The only problem is that I definitely never did anything like that today or yesterday, and those are the only times that something like that could happen. Sighing in frustration at not being able to figure it out, Naruto went on to the other memories that he had gained. After that, I apparently did some cleaning up in my room and watered my plants too. For some reason though, those memories are more hazy and disjointed than the other one. Still, I know I didn't do anything like that yesterday since I didn't have time for it. It was just a thought I had since I couldn't sleep, until I decided to just leave a shadow clone there and came out here to train. He paused at that thought, finding it odd. Actually, I did just send my shadow clone to the house to speak to Temari. If she was up already, It's possible that something like that could have happened. Am I seeing what my shadow clones see? Scrunching his eyes at that information, he tried to remember if he ever did anything like that before. However, all he could come up with were brief flashes from when he previously used his shadow clones. Gah! He exclaimed, throwing up his hands. This is hurting my head. How am I supposed to figure out why this is happening? What I really need to do is just ask someone smart if they know what's going on. Satisfied with that plan, Naruto began to think of who knew enough about shadow clones to ask. Kakashi-sensei would know. But I don't know where he's at, and it'll be hours before he's here. Lady Bachan's probably still hung over this early, and pervy sage probably only uses his clones to peek at women. Sticking his tongue out in concentration, Naruto mulled it over a little longer before a light bulb went off in his brain. Oh, I know. Iruka-sensei is pretty smart. He would probably know about something like this. Nodding to himself at that train of thought, Naruto decided to ask Iruka if he might know what was going on. Mentally checking that he should be at the academy getting ready for the day around this time, Naruto stretched slightly before beginning to make his way over to the academy to hopefully get the answers he needed. Iruka was having a normal day. He woke up, ate breakfast, and got ready to head to the academy for another day of teaching. Once he arrived there, he checked to make sure his lesson plan was ready and then went to work on grading some papers he hadn't finished yet. So, there he was, sitting at his desk, trying to get caught up on work before his students arrived for the day. Just another boring, normal day. The kind of day that Iruka treasured the most. Iruka-sensei, unfortunately for him, the tranquil setting was quickly disrupted by the most troublesome student he ever had. As Naruto shoved open the door to his office and shouted his name. Guess it was too good to be true. Iruka thought to himself with a sigh. Turning his head towards Naruto, Iruka gave his best disappointed look before addressing him. Naruto, how many times have I told you to keep it down when you're at school? Naruto at least had the decency to look embarrassed. Ducking his head slightly and mumbling out a sorry, Iruka shook his head in exasperation before putting his pen down and shifting his chair so that he could face Naruto properly. What are you even doing here, Naruto? You've already graduated, and you're not the type to come here for something as small as a visit. Perking back up at the question, Naruto stepped inside Iruka's office fully, shutting the door behind him. Seeing Iruka's raised eyebrow, he decided to get straight to the matter of why he was here. You're right, Iruka-sensei. I didn't come here just to visit you. I actually had a question about something, and I thought that you might be able to help me out. Iruka was surprised that Naruto was coming to him for help, but also pleased at the same time. Since Naruto was the type to always try to brute force an answer whenever he could, asking for help was a nice change of pace. All right, Naruto, I've got some time. So, what is it that you wanted me to help with? Naruto's cheeks turned red as he looked to the side before beginning to explain himself. I need your advice on things, Iruka-sensei. Earlier today, I saw something that I couldn't understand, and I need your help to figure out what it means. Iruka saw how Naruto was embarrassed to bring it up, which spoke volumes of what he had seen considering Naruto didn't easily getting embarrassed. Knowing this wasn't what he signed up for, he threw Naruto a deadpan look before denying him. I'm not talking about something like this with you, Naruto. If you really have to know, then go ask someone like Kakashi or Lord Jiraiya. As soon as he said that though, he began to have second thoughts. Wait, should I really send Naruto to them? I feel like that's a bad idea. Iruka began to open his mouth to take back his words, but Naruto began waving his hands wildly in front of himself before he could. And no, wait, it's not like that. I didn't come here to ask about anything pervy. Seeing Iruka's confused expression, Naruto sighed as he elaborated what he was really there for. What I meant was that earlier today I was training just like usual. However, in the middle of it, I had a bunch of images come into my mind before I got a massive headache. The weird thing though was that it was memories of things that I know I didn't do. It was actually some stuff that I told my shadow clones to do while I was busy training. Iruka gained a look of understanding as Naruto continued to explain his circumstances. Honestly, it was a relief that it was something like this that Naruto came to him. Do you know what's going on with me, Iruka-sensei? Naruto pleaded. Am I seeing through the eyes of my shadow clones or something? Heh, not exactly. Iruka started off with a grin. Although, you're not very far off either. Lord Third actually gave me a quick rundown on how exactly the shadow clone jutsu works after you learned it all those months ago. He was of the mind that you would eventually need some pointers about it, and I was one of the ones he trusted with that. Although, I think we both expected you to ask about it much earlier than this. Huh. Do you mean that not that many people actually know about the jutsu here in the village? Naruto asked, scratching his head. Yes and no. Irika began to answer. While it's true that many shinobi know the jutsu exists, there are very few actually know how to perform it. The number of people left in the village who know it is most likely in the single digits, while the number who can actually make good use of it is even lower. After all, you did learn it from the Forbidden Scroll. Naruto nodded at that information, remembering how it was only because he had so much chakra, thanks to the combination of Uzumaki blood and the Kyuubi, that he was able to make as many shadow clones as he could. It's for that reason that the actual intricacies of the shadow clone jutsu aren't actually common knowledge. Irika continued. Most shinobi know that they're actual physical copies and they can perform other jutsus just like a real shinobi can. This makes them dangerous on the battlefield, but because they can be dispelled in a single blow, they can also be unreliable. Irika leaned back in his chair. However, what most people don't realize is that shadow clones weren't originally created for use in combat. Naruto looked surprised at that remark. Huh, really? Then what else would be used for Irika-sensei? It's true, Irika said, nodding to himself. Lord Second was the one who invented the jutsu, like a good portion of the jutsus we use now, and he originally created it for recon missions. After all, there were very few people that would be able to waste all the chakra needed to make a shadow clone for combat without crippling their own reserves. It wasn't worth the trade-off in most cases. However, the jutsu has another feature that makes it one of the most useful ones ever invented for spying and recon. Naruto leaned forward, getting more and more eager to hear just what he didn't know about the shadow clone jutsu. Irika smirked, seeing that he had him hooked. He let the tension build for a few more seconds before finally telling him. The shadow clone jutsu has the ability to transfer all the memories it makes to the original user. The teacher watched as Naruto slowly processed what he had just said. It was obvious that he was putting things together, although the growing redness on Naruto's face was somewhat of a concern. I see you finally understand how shadow clones fully function now. Lord Second devised them as a way to scope out enemies while providing no risk to the user. With the way the memory transfer works, a shinobi would be able to gain any knowledge their clone learns while being able to do other things at the same time. That's so awesome! Naruto shouted with stars in his eyes. Shadow clones are even better than I thought they were. Take that, Sasuke! Naruto exclaimed the last bit with a smug look on his face. Afterwards, though, his mouth scrunched up slightly as he remembered something else. Hey, Irika-sensei? If the shadow clones transfer memories, then why don't I remember anything like that happening before today? Naruto asked, confused. Also, why did I get such a bad headache earlier when I did get the memories? Irika put his hand on his chin as he thought about the question. After a little bit of mental deliberation, he spoke up. Well, you've always just used your shadow clones for fights before today, right? Usually with them only lasting no more than a few minutes. Naruto nodded. That's right. I've only used my clones a few times for things besides fighting, and it's never been for very long when I do. It makes sense then that you wouldn't notice the memory transfer. Irika replied. Since your clones weren't alive for very long, they didn't have enough time to make any meaningful memories to transfer. At the most, you might have gotten brief flashes of what your clones saw, but you probably blocked it out with your focus on your fight. Pursing his lips at that information, Naruto let it sink in as he thought back to his fights where he had used shadow clones before. Now that I think about it, there were a few times where it seemed like my point of the battlefield changed briefly. I just shook it off though as nothing. As for why you got a headache, Irika continued, there could be a few reasons. The most likely cause is because you're just not used to the memory transfer. After all, this is the first time that you've actually experienced it in its entirety. Nodding at that reasonable explanation, Naruto waited for Irika to give his other theories. He figured there had to be more to it than just that, since some of his memories that he got felt disjointed and didn't flow together quite right. The other reason is probably because of how long your shadow clone was alive. The more time that passes, the more memories it makes that are varied and unique, which means the more information gets crammed into your brain when it eventually dispels. Huh? What do you mean, Irika-sensei? Naruto asked while tilting his head in confusion. How best to explain it? Irika muttered to himself quietly. After a moment, he snapped his fingers in inspiration. Oh, how about you think of it like this? You have plants, right, Naruto? Seeing Naruto nod in confirmation, Irika continued. Well, when you water them, do you slowly pour the water from the pitcher, or do you just dump it on top of them all at once? I pour it slowly? Naruto replied, unsure of where his teacher was going with this. That's right, Irika said, satisfied. And why do you do it like that? Because if I don't, then a lot of the water will spill everywhere. And because the plant also soaks up the water better if it's poured slowly. Naruto answered, correct. So no, just think about the plant as your brain and the water as the memories you're getting from your shadow clones. If you get a lot of memories back from your clone all at once, you're likely to experience backlash and also lose some of the information in the process. However, if you set a limit on how long your clone is active, you can control the flow of information you receive much better. I think I get it, Naruto muttered lowly. So that's why the memories I got from the clone I sent to ask Temari for tips are so much clearer than the one I left behind earlier. It only lasted for a little while and only had one task, while the earlier one had been there for hours and did several different things in the meantime. In the midst of processing that information, Naruto felt a light bulb go off in his mind. Actually, maybe I can use that. I have another question, Irika-sensei, Naruto said after a moment of quiet. Do you think I could use shadow clones to help with my training? Huh? Irika blinked in surprise at the question. He took a moment to think about it before replying. Well, I suppose it's possible. I'm not sure if it's ever been done before, but it could work. It would only be beneficial for certain things though. Stuff like getting used to the flow of chakra needed for jutsus or memorizing hand signs. Physical training such as building muscle or the like would be completely useless with clones, however. Awesome! Naruto's shout caused Irika to jump slightly in his chair. That means that I can use this to learn a bunch of new jutsus and get super strong really fast. Heh! I'll be ahead of Sasuke in no time. Hold on, Naruto. Irika waved his hands, trying to temper his expectations. I'm still not sure this will even work. Besides, even if it does, there might be difficulties that I don't know about. You should at least ask Kakashi what he thinks before you go ahead and attempt it. I guess you're right, Naruto said reluctantly. Though the way he was tapping his foot and pouting slightly, you could tell he wasn't happy about it. Still, it allowed Irika to let out a sigh of relief that Naruto was at least willing to listen. That's all I ask. After calming back down, he looked back at Naruto. Was that everything then? Naruto nodded. Yep, that was it. Thanks for all your help, Irika-sensei. Well, I'm just glad it was something I could actually help with. Irika replied with a slight laugh, rubbing the back of his head. Pausing momentarily in his motions, he asked a question that he had been curious about ever since Naruto said what he came here for. Hey Naruto, what did you have your clones doing in the first place that made you realize this stuff? Naruto froze in his spot before his eyes widened. Ah crap, he shouted out before turning around and throwing open the office door in a hurry. I forgot I wasn't supposed to leave them alone. With those last words, Naruto disappeared down the hallway, causing Irika to blink in disbelief at where Naruto just was. After his mind caught back up with him, he sighed in disappointment. Why do I feel like I just released something I shouldn't have?